Welcome to this discussion about the film Malmkrog with the film's director Cristi Puiu and one of the film's producers, Jörgen Andersson. My name is Hynek Pallas and I'm a Swedish film critic and I will be moderating this discussion. Cristi Puiu, you might know, director of films such as The Death of Mr. Lazarescu, Sierra Nevada and Aurora, and Malmkrog is his fifth feature. A film that recently opened the film festival in Berlin. So Cristi, could you please start by telling the viewers a bit about your film, the background?
It's a long story that is having a lot to do with money, raising the money for it. The first decision was to settle the whole story somewhere in the southern part of Romania, not far from Bucharest, in a mansion somewhere before the start of the First World War. So we couldn't find a proper mansion for the film. We couldn't find money because we started the project. The project started somewhere after the workshop. I did a workshop in Toulouse in 2011. Based on the text of Solovyov, and then after we submitted the project for Malmkrog that was called at that time the Manor House. So in 2011 it happened, and from that moment on 2011. From that moment on, we tried to raise money, and so we suspended the project for a while because we couldn't find the money and we couldn't find a proper mansion. And then later on, it's my brother who told me, "Listen, go to Transylvania. There is a mansion, very beautiful mansion there. Maybe it works for your film." But I didn't want to shoot in Transylvania because I had to. I would have been in this put in this position of rethinking the whole film, and I didn't want. I was very much attached to the story, this story that was supposed to take place before the start of the First World War. But little by little, I said to myself, "Let's give it a try," and I went there in Transylvania, and I just find the mansion quite exquisite for my film. So I decided to reinvent the whole story. So we did the documentation for the whole period, and we pushed back the whole story. I mean, the costumes coming from the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. The book of Solovyov, the text of Solovyov has been written and published in 1900 precisely. So I decided to reinvent the story and to place the whole thing in Transylvania.
You already mentioned Solovyov. So we should say that this is the Russian philosopher Vladimir Solovyov, and the text is War and Christianity, Free Conversations. What exactly attracted you to this text?
Well, I first read the text of Solovyov in somewhere after the falling down of the communism. I believe it was in 93 or 94. When it was first published in Romania, and but I was into painting at that moment. That time, I think about making a film out of this text. I never did, in fact, think about making a film out of text of that, and especially a philosophical text. But it stayed with me during all these years, and I decided to give it a try, and because Chantier Nomade, Les Chantiers Nomades from France gave me this opportunity to do this workshop in Toulouse, I said to myself, so let's give it a try and try and see if it is possible to get something out of this text that belongs to a bit to history, a bit to philosophy, a bit to theology, a bit to, and anyway, a lot to Solovyov's view on these matters. So I was happy with it, with this exercise I did in workshop I did in Toulouse, and that's why the decision. But it was, if I have to place it in the context was the falling down of the communism and the sort of discovery of a way of thinking that did not belong to my world. I'm coming from this communist background, especially at the beginning of the 90s. I was very much caught in this inertia of this way of thinking that belonged to my experience, life experience, and it's coming from those years, from the 80s, from the communist time of Ceausescu. So it was like a sort of revelation, not the revelation, but some kind of a revelation, realizing that there are questions I never asked myself because apparently the communists solved them all. So that was the trigger of the whole thing.
You mean like history frozen down and then being thawed after 1990? So a lot of stuff that had been buried came up to the surface.
Yeah.
We will get back to that because that's very interesting. I just want to let in Jörgen here as a producer, a 3.5 hour long film about philosophy and the 19th and early 20th century politics set in a mansion. I would say it's becoming a rarity in today's cinematic landscape. As a producer, how do you reason when you take on a film of this kind? What exactly draw you to this one?
Well, first of all, to work on let's say first that I'm a co-producer of Malmkrog. I'm not the producer of Malmkrog, but I mean I think I met Cristi back in 2016, 2017. I really like his films. And what drew me into it was the opportunity to work on a film by Cristi Puiu, which is, made some astonishing films. Yeah, very much so. And Malmkrog is also an astonishing film. What specifically, apart from that, drew me into the project was, I mean, I think Cristi as a filmmaker is someone who dares to challenge, the tradition of film or film art itself. And that is very much what attracted it to me. That would be the short answer.
Well, the art house circuit has certainly changed a lot in the past decades, and films that once had a given place in cinemas are now, if at all, confined to festivals. And Jörgen, when we met, we talked about where it opened, in what section it opened in Berlinale. So films don't even open in the sort of big section. Certain films are now aimed for side sections. And I even read a review of the film that said, and I quote here, "Is cinema really the best means to delve deep into this level of intense philosophizing?" What do you say to that? Because this is a question to both of you. Has cinema reached a point where we even pose those questions, if philosophy has a part in cinema?
Well, I would say that this have been like a nivellation of art house cinema, or there's been a sort of a mainstreamification, if you can make a verb of that, a noun of that, of mainstream of art house cinema. And in that context, I think that Malmkrog having its world premiere in Encounters is, it's important. It's important. I mean, I believe Encounters at Berlinale to be sort of an expressing an ambition to make art house cinema more in the front line of film art, and I think Malmkrog is exactly that. It takes film art, it challenges what the contemporary context of art house cinema is. So yeah. So in that sense, I don't even remember the question. Sorry, Hynek.
Well, sorry, it's a multi-part question. It's my bad. Well, partly it's does it even have a cinema life? I mean, how as a Swede we have when we talked a lot about it from a Swedish perspective, where a film like this, we don't see this stuff in cinemas anymore at all. So maybe I can pass the question on to Cristi and say, has it opened in Romania, and if so, what was the reaction?
It didn't because of the lockdown, but we had some reactions because the film was screened in Cluj, in Transylvania International Film Festival, and then in several places, even in Bucharest. But regarding your question about philosophy and cinema, is it this even a question? You see, I believe it's not a question. It's not a true question. It's a false question that says a lot about the surprise of the guy who wrote the review. And I can understand it. I have lots of problems. Like, for example, I have lots of problem with films depicting stories, usually tragic ones, that involves kids and animals. And I cannot watch these kind of films. I've been, when I was young, when I was a kid, I was traumatized by Bambi. I hate this film. I cannot watch it, but still, I believe there is a place for these films. The question is it my place in the cinema? There, do I have a place in a cinema during this kind of films, during the projection, the screening of this kind of films? And the answer is no. So I've been trying to do my best not to avoid this confrontation with myself and this strong emotion that I cannot sustain. So I believe that a lot of people are going to reject Malmkrog for different reasons, but legitimate reasons, valid reasons. No, I don't want to see people talking philosophy on screen. So I understand, and I find it to be normal. I mean, it is about a choice that you are making. If we are talking in general, if there is a place for philosophy in cinema, this is not a question. I believe cinema is a domain that, so as generous as poetry, I don't believe this question is legitimate when we are asking ourselves about the intimate relationship that exists between poetry and philosophy. We don't have a problem with it. But when it comes to cinema, we have this problem because cinema is about entertaining. Cinema is also about entertaining. It's not just about entertaining. It is about having fun, but it's not just about having fun. This this being said, I believe Malmkrog is having it is funny from time to time, and I find it to be funny, but it is not. It is just a side effect of the view I have on cinema and on the world. Otherwise, the question in general, does philosophy belong to cinema, is like, you know, this title of the concerto it's a show. It's of Frank Zappa called "Does Humor Belong in Music?" Does humor belong in music? Yes, of course. And I believe philosophy is having a lot to do with cinema, as humor is having a lot to do with cinema, and humor with philosophy as well. So it's not a question, it's just the expression of a surprise, and I understand it as such.
If I'm more specific, what exactly in the text and the dialogue did you find cinematic? Was there something when you read it and you said, oh, this I can turn into cinema? Do you remember a moment like that?
No, it does not exist a moment like that. It's the whole dialogue. You know, I wanted to do this with Plato's dialogues. I believe the dialogue is important. Dialogue is a part of ourselves. It defines us. The problem is that we keep on forgetting the fact that the dialogue is a part of ourselves. We tend to believe that the dialogue is just a passage from me to me. And during this passage, I have to exchange ideas and thoughts and feelings with somebody else, which is not me. So it's like boring. Now get back to me. But this is something that belongs to the Facebook era. It is not. This is something that has to be questioned. It belongs to internet and Facebook and the selfie era. Dialogue is very important. It is a part of ourselves. It's a part of our culture, and it's the sense of it. I believe the sense of cinema is the dialogue after the screening. Of course, there is something that is taking place during the screening of a film that you are getting in touch with and you are resonating with. But again, I believe what you are going to exchange with your fellow men, your friends, your family, this is something of. This is what is important. We are doing things in this world, on this planet. Some people are cooking, some people are painting, some people are solving equations and problems of physics and mathematics and chemistry, what have you. Some people are asking themselves questions regarding the sense of and the meaning of life. Some people are praying. I believe all these things are having a lot to do with what is happening in what I will call life. Life, it is this energy that we are passing from one to another. Life is even it might sound like an advertisement. Life, it is about love, and love, it is about dialogue, and the dialogue is not just about the words. So what intrigued me two things. First, the relationship I'm having with this kind of cinema. I'm referring especially to Eric Romer, where you have a big amount of dialogue in his films. And then after this very serious dialogue that you have in My Dinner with André, the film of Louis Malle, which after watching the film, you are mesmerized, still keeping on thinking of very serious questions, but like a week later, if somebody is going to ask you what is all about, what they were talking about, what, and you cannot say. So then you are going to rewatch the film and say, yes, of course, it was this and that, because it's very dense, and it was about the meaning of all this that we can call life and universe and truth and God and what have you. And my feeling was that if I can get to that level of receiving what I am expecting from the actors, for them to be at the present time and telling, expressing these thoughts, then I'll be in heaven. We'll have a film, because it is all about this whole process of incorporating the thoughts, those thoughts that are not Solovyov's thoughts, that are our thoughts. We are questioning, we are asking ourselves questions, sometimes even more serious questions than he dared to ask during this dialogue that he invented in order to place his inquiry in those domains, being history, God, or morals and progress of humanity and so on. But it is something that it's a part of our life. We don't dare to go as far as to assume it completely, because of things that are having more to do with our image and with ourselves. But in fact, this is what I noticed. I mean, in these 50 years of life on this planet, what I noticed is that people are afraid to ask the questions. It is not that they don't ask themselves the questions. They just don't want to expose themselves, to show that they are weak somehow, and they don't know anything about life. And this is this was the proposition that I found to be interesting in a film based on dialogue, and the switching of the action, making the action less important than the dialogue, which is usually in a narrative film, in narrative cinema, the dialogue is there, dialogues are there in order to sustain the action, the main story and the secondary stories, just to fill in the blanks, to cover this phase of life as well, the exchanging of words and the meanings. Yeah.
When you talk about dialogue, I'm also reminds me, of course, of your last film, Sierra Nevada, where the dialogue is much more quotidian than this. This is, but it's the same kind of function. And it's funny that you say this about Facebook, because it should be the other way around. If people spend their days on Facebook discussing, they should be much more adapted to, the dialogue of Sierra Nevada could be a thread on Facebook, like someone has these conspiracy theories, someone has something private and blah blah blah.
I don't believe they discuss. I believe it is about exposing themselves. It is showing themselves. It is showing off. It is not exposing, because it's have a very strange connotation, but just to show, just to deliver the portrait of themselves. I mean, they are exchanging self-portraits. It is not about dialogue. The dialogue, it has a lot to do with sort of the dialogue has to put you in the position of the dialogue has to trigger your naivete. The dialogue has to trigger your innocence. Otherwise, it's not a dialogue. It is a fight. It is something else. But dialogue has a lot to do with your innocence, and with the love for your interlocutor, the guy you are talking with. is there not in order to put yourself in the best light. He is there in order to deliver his message, and you have to be aware of the fact that he traveled through a completely different and maybe strange and surprising, I don't know, landscape, forest. He came he entered in dialogue with you, with his own experience of life, experience that you believe that you know something about, but you have to assume that you don't know. I mean, the essential of his experience, you cannot grasp the essential the essential part of his experience, and he has to play reciprocally. It has to be a sense of reciprocity in this exchange, assuming that you don't know. You know lots of things about the other, because we are having the same working after, the same biological function, so you can understand that somebody can have some health problems and or I don't know, frustrations of lots of kind of frustrations are building ourselves up without us wanting. But the essential part of his experience, it is something that you will always miss. So you have to stay, to be present, in touch, in contact, during the dialogue, and to listen.
Speaking of dialogue and listening, how much impact did the actors have on this? Was everything set in stone, or were you surprised when you rehearsed with them and started to change things? Did they have an impact on that?
I was surprised because I was surprised, and I was surprised by the text. I knew the text almost by heart, but it was, and it is still, it stays a very surprising text. But I was surprised to notice at what point they entered in, they accepted this challenge, because they wanted to understand what they are saying. This is extremely rewarding for the director, for any director. Because if you understand what you are saying, then you can build. It is not the right word. The build. You don't build a character. You can be there, and you are not a character. You are the human that is asking himself these questions or asking the other the questions. So we had a long discussions about the meaning of the whole text and of every sequence in every part of it, and it was not an easy thing to do. Some of them, if not every one of them, cried a lot. I don't believe everyone, but most of them, they did cry.
Why?
Because you cannot be without detaching yourself of the image you build during your everyday life. In order to be in front of the camera, you have to detach, and this detachment of what you think is good, it comes with pain. It's painful because you are going to enter to step into moving ground, moving sand, because you cannot be in control. But acting, it is not being in control. Acting is about bungee jumping. It is not about precision. It is about letting yourself be and this is not an easy thing to do, because during our everyday life, we try to do our best in order to avoid this, because it is a self-preservation instinct, because of lots of reasons. We are faking it up, and we are wearing a mask on stage and in front of the camera. You have to forget about it. You have to just and the act of being in front of the camera, it's an act of generosity. You have to give without waiting for something in exchange, just giving. And this giving is not giving what you learned, meaning the lines or wearing your costume and walking up and down in a frame. No, it's not about this. It's not about quantifiable things. It is giving, is having to do with yourself, is giving yourself to the audience. And this is painful, of course.
Jörgen, as a co-producer, did you go to set, or what was your role in this?
No, I did not go to the set. So we did sound production, post-production in Sweden.
What was your impression when you first saw the film? What did you take away from it?
That, I think the Malmkrog is, it's an overwhelming experience, and you can kind of, referring to what we spoke about, just right now, what Cristi said just right now, you can either choose to enter or you can choose to stay out. And if you're gonna enter, it will cost you something, of course. It will be also, that is a painful process in a sense, I would say.
It's true.
And I meant it in the best way, Cristi, of course.
No, it's true. I agree with you. I agree with you completely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but once you enter and you've made that choice, I thought it would to be a very, rewarding experience is might be but as we spoke of earlier, does philosophy has a place in cinema? For me, cinema, everything would have a place in cinema, I suppose. And entering the dialogues of Malmkrog is entering what life is from a certain aspect. And this is this is open up to the big questions in life, the big political, the big philosophical questions, or the theological questions. So, I took on that process gladly, but not without pain. That would be my answer.
Well, that's a good answer. There is this instance in the film, and not knowing if people have seen the film, I will not go into detail, but those who have seen it will know what I talk about. It's a scene that is very Buñuel or Godardesque. And I want to ask both director and producer the reasoning behind it. You don't have to answer if you don't want to give anything away, but is this because it's one could say it's a very surprising action scene, and one would think that a lot of producers would want to see something like that in a film that is very long, something that breaks the tension. I assume that you know what I'm talking about. So how did you, Jörgen, did the producers have anything to do with this scene?
No, not me as a producer. I had no bearing whatsoever on what scenes that were shot, or which ones were edited out or edited in or so. But, I remember having a conversation with Cristi about, is it possible to make cinema with at least having some, sensational, I don't remember if this was the exact word, but sensational element, like, somebody killing somebody, sex or violence or something like that. And that was my reflection. I was, coming to think of that discussion when I saw that scene the first time, edited. Yeah.
What do you say, Cristi? The girl and the gun.
Yeah, the girl and the gun. It's having to do with my experience, the experience I have as a viewer, as a spectator. You know, for me, cinema was just vulgar for you know, entertaining ourselves, you know, from time to time. And I was very fond when I was young, westerns and film noir, and I discovered cinema, this serious cinema, this very artistic cinema. Later on, I was 17, and the film that triggered the whole thing was it's not a coincidence. It's true story. This is true story. It's The Exterminating Angel of Buñuel. So it stayed with me, I believe, but it's not like I was pushing a button and turn the whole thing into Buñuel. The reason behind it is and you can see there are these 6 episodes of the film, and then every episode is being treated differently. So that episode of Edouard, which is the politician in the text of Solovyov, for me was what I mean. How to do it? What can be close to how I perceive a politician. So, you know, this is the first film when I use this mean of expression that belongs to cinema, which is shot, reverse shot. So in that moment in the film, because there is the first story of Ingrida, and then it is Istvan, and then it is Edouard, and in Edouard we have the shot and reverse shot, and shot it like you would shoot a sequence like this for a telefilm, which like not exactly, but very, very close to it. So it had to be the observer, the one who is recording this sequence, has to be placed outside the circle of the characters that are being caught inside this dialogue, trialogue or quadralogue, and it had to be. I had to break all this, to destroy, to undermine this moment somehow, and to place this event like a sticker on the film. You see, it is coming from my cinematographic toolbox. So this, I mean, you know, with no relation with what happened before, with no relation with what happened after, raising a question mark regarding this extreme event, erasing the main characters completely from the face of this planet, and using for this what is quite common in cinema, in traditional cinema, fire guns and music. So the music I picked for this moment was a music that sounds to me like, and I had to find it, to search for it. I had to look for it, especially in among the music recorded at the beginning of the 20th century, music that might belong to the silent movies. So this is the the trigger. We don't know if the trigger the noises in the backstage, or is the music that start. Actually, it is the music, because the music make them react, and the music belongs to this silent movie tradition. The text of Solovyov has been written in 1900. So cinema, after the latest researches, apparently started with the Lumière brothers in 1895. So we were at the beginning of cinema, at the beginning of some kind of new artistic domain, kind of relative to opera, theater, and literature, and painting and photography and what have you. And of course, the television, like using this the formula of Godard, I would say, yes, if we are talking of cinema, we cannot talk of cinema without a girl and the gun. So we had the girls, we had the guns.
I was thinking a lot about revolution when I saw the scene, and I think in many layers, that historical moment where you were at end of something, the 19th century ending, you had the Russian revolutions coming up, you had, and the film in itself, as you say, a revolution, a modernity. There was a lot of revolutions, and it's like a scene of revolution that not only wipes the persons out, but it wipes that age where the bourgeoisie that switches between Habsburg and Russia, that switches between German and French. And it's like you were saying before about, you discovered this in the early 90s, where history comes back. It's like a intellectual archaeology of historical memory, and all these things that they talk about, Turkey, relationship to Muslims, relationship Russia and Europe, are things that we talk about today. So it was like, we really haven't moved that far, and a lot of things, nationalism, came rushing back after 1990, or were used by skilled politicians, old myths used by politicians. Were these things on your mind in a contemporary way?
They were on my mind. I don't know what is a contemporary way. They were in my mind. And before starting to shoot the film, I decided not to shoot it, and because we didn't have the money, we didn't have the mansion. So at that moment, I reread The Demons of Dostoevsky. So of course, this moment in the middle of the film is having a lot to do with the Russian Revolution. Actually, some historians are calling the 19th century the long century. According with them, it stops after the First World War, this 19th century, with all what they built during this whole period of revolutions, from Napoleon, from the French Revolution till the Russian Revolution. It is a very long century. I believe a lot of things changed after the First World War, La Grande Guerre, with a lot of consequences on us. I believe that we learn something in school, and we have to be very present and to pay attention to all the details, because we tend to be manipulated. And we are not just manipulated by our education that we are receiving, we are manipulated by the media, by a lot of, let's say, channels of information, of any kind of information. And it becomes quite difficult to put together the whole amount of information that it requires in order to restore a moment in time. So the film as such is the restoration of an experience that I am having myself with Solovyov, with Dostoevsky, with Tolstoy, and with history as such, what I learned in school and what I read about it. Regarding all the actual tendencies, I will invite, rather than propose, I will invite the audience to be aware of the fact that every cat is a lie, to quote Monsieur Godard. And it is true. It is something that is having a lot to do with different kind of interests, and you are being caught inside. You are a pawn on the chessboard, and it is not just a metaphor. And you are caught by this net of education, of the educational system, and everything that you have. You are being placed on this planet as a consequence of the Big Bang, or as a consequence of God. It is your choice to think whatever you want to think, but believing that you understand what is happening around you, it is cheating on yourself. You don't understand. You understand some things, and those things that you understand are those things that helps you eat, sleep, and do all these things that your organism requires in order to stay alive and well. But otherwise, all the other things are just a matter of debate, long debate, and are just hypotheses. We know nothing. And what was the trigger of my intention, initial intention, to make something by films by using the dialogues of Plato, was this thought, this question I was asking myself: is it possible to install inside of the film the question I know that I don't know of Socrates, by using the means of cinema without expressing it as such, without formulating? Is it possible to install inside the film this question mark regarding the world we are living in? And from the position of the author, to install the question, to install the inside the film, this testimony that it states that I don't know. I've been, like, on the 3rd of April, 54 years old. It was my birthday. In 54 years, I'm here, and I cannot say that I know something for sure. I know some little things regarding the world I am living in, and cinema as well, but very little and with no importance, right? Very personal. But otherwise, I believe we are cheating on ourselves. And regarding the revolution, the Russian Revolution, I think you know, not you yourself, but all of us, we better check first the event and try to understand what was all about, and then after step forward. But it is a very, 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 it's a labyrinth, like all the serious events. The problem with these events, these big scale events of history, is that there's a lot of people who suffered, and a lot of people are gonna suffer again, a lot. And this is the apparently the cycle of history that is being the consequence of decisions that belong to ourselves. It is the human decisions, and so this is very serious. It's very hard to say, to talk more about this, because it is a matter of information, and it's a big amount of information that is missing.
It's a lot about what we take to the film, and that's what I meant about the question of the contemporary question. Because when I saw the film and they read the letter from the general, I was not thinking about that much what happened then, but I was thinking about ISIS and the caliphate today. So you bring stuff to a film like this, and you fill in with your own ideas of the world.
It happened to me. It happened to me, the same thing. It happened to me when I first read this, was in the beginning of the 90s, and there were lots of wars, and close to us was the war in Yugoslavia. So, and it's crazy. This war machine will never stop. You have the impression, I have the impression, that this will go on and on forever, like forever. And this was the shock. This was one of the shocks. I mean, I am reading this book. It is 1994, and the book was written in 1900. Nothing changed. How come? I don't understand. What I learned in school is a completely different story of the world I'm living in. In fact, nothing changed, and will go on and on. I believe it is something that we have to, if it is about changing something, it is about the place, our own personal place, that has to change. I mean, at the individual level, what you can do, it is something that you can do at the individual level, and try to do your best in order not to place yourself first on the list. In the first position in every list, don't place yourself there. Place yourself at the bottom of the list. Try and do this, and be good to others. And then maybe something will change. But in this time of Facebook, even this invitation I'm trying to formulate now, it is going to be distorted. Because people are saying, yes, what I'm doing for the others. Bullshit. No. If you are doing for the others, shut up. Shut up. You have to be discreet. If you do for the others, be discreet. Be a gentleman. Be a gentlewoman. Be a human. Try and do your best in order to help the others, and shut up. Because when you are talking about this, it is because you are expecting some kind of a reward, some kind of a statue, some kind of a prize. No, the good people are not noisy.
Speaking of the self, a lot of reviews of your films have a real problem of letting go of the Romanian New Wave as a thematical and formalistic concept. Has this created a problem with expectations on you and your films, you feel?
I don't know. Listen, I don't consider myself, and it is not a matter of modesty of any kind. It's just a matter of realism. So now, if you are talking about the Romanian New Wave, realism, etc., naturalism, and what have you, I believe I'm consequent with myself. It is being realistic about this. I've been caught in this stream of filmmaking. I started by being interested in painting, and I'm still interested in painting. But I discovered cinema when I was in school in Geneva. It was during the 90s, the beginning of the 90s. I finished my study in 96. And my first film, I started making my first film in '99. And I like to make films, but I'm not paying attention to these things. I forget, you can imagine, I mean, the death of Mr. Lazarescu was invited like to 120 something international film festivals. And I've been to 5 of them. 1 in Romania, because it's at home. 1, the premiere in Cannes. Just 3 of them outside Romania. I don't travel. I don't like to. It is not me. It is not me. I enjoy very much, you know, meeting friends, people, drinking. I enjoy the company of the others. But there is something that is not me in all these things. So I'm not paying attention to these things. If they, I don't want to surprise anybody. It is I try to do my best in order to tell my story and to testify. And you are, you know, moving. There are things that are changing you. Your life is full of events, and hopefully, I mean, God loves me somehow, and I didn't encounter this event that will crush me completely. It is not about my death. It's about, I've been crushed several times, but not completely, you know, like every one of us. I'm not complaining. And I'm trying to restore what I experienced. So I'm not paying attention to what the people are saying. And this, the consequence is that you have long films. But I cannot cut the film because, you know, there are some people who are considering like 3 hours film Sierra Nevada is too much. Nobody force you. There are lots of films you can watch. This is my position. This is what I see. If you are interested, good. If you are not interested, good. It's everything. It's okay. We're cool. But, you know, like, this is not a subject, you know, family meeting. This is not serious. Are you sure it's not serious? So meaning that in your life, you've been caught in all those processes, in Manhattan projects, some kind of Manhattan projects after Manhattan project. And this is serious. So in your life, you are questioning the meaning of life every day. You are not being caught in these casual conversations. No, this is not true. Like in Romania, people are saying, no, your films, the new Romanian New Wave is distorting the image of Romania. Why? Why? Because we are living in a block of flats? We are living in a block of flats. I grew up in a block of flats and I'm living in a block of flats. What's the problem with it? We are eating, we're spending our life in the kitchen. Well, they had to think about it and building up bigger kitchens because people in Romania are spending their life in the kitchen. You are smoking there, you're drinking, you are eating, you are talking, and then you have the living room where usually you fall asleep in front of a stupid show on TV. And this is life. It is about telling the truth. It is about exchanging your real values. Maybe they are not valuable. Maybe they are just rubbish. But it is about this. It is about trying and risking and exchanging, being true to yourself and trying to do whatever you can in order not to offend the others and to take care of the others. But otherwise, I'm not... I would like, you know, I would like to have a house. We try to do our best. We have just a little piece of land. We would like to build a house on it, but we didn't have the money. I would like to make films, you know, commercial films. I cannot make them. I'm not suitable for this. I'm not prepared for this. I'm not trained for doing this. But in order to get the money and to have a house, a nice house with a swimming pool, or something, especially during the lockdown. I thought to myself, wow, it would have been really great to have a house, a swimming pool, and then the sky. But we don't have this. So, but it's like I don't pay attention to the surprise of the spectators, what I'm doing this, and more than this, I'm inviting the students. I used to teach for 9 years in the film school in Bucharest. I told them, listen, don't pay attention to the best way to express your respect to the spectator is not to take the spectator in account while making your film, because it is an act of love, of expressing your love. You are going to put on the table what you are, assuming all the risks of being hated by the spectator, but this is you, and this is the best way to express your respect to the spectator. And when I'm saying that, don't take into account the spectator. What do you mean by this? You are acting like, superior. You are the. No, it is not about this. It is about what Hitchcock said. The spectator is much more intelligent than the director, and it is true. And we are talking about real spectators. We are not talking about people who entered the cinema for different reasons, like we did during the 80s, during Ceausescu's, entering the Korean and the Chinese propaganda films with our girlfriends, because it was dark and you can be there sitting in and kissing during the film. But anyway.
So if Marvel called so you and asked you to make a film so you couldn't afford a house, you wouldn't. What superhero would you make a film about?
Well, I believe this is a very serious matter. I'm not joking. I don't know how to do this kind of films. No. I mean,
I'm joking as well. But I think you said something very. You called it Manhattan Projects. And I think I will aim this for Jörgen. I think we're living in a cinema culture where we see Manhattan Project, which superhero films, the big event films. And I mean, it's hard now to talk about cinema distribution because of the pandemic. I know you have a cinema distributor in France. I think it's unlikely that you will ever have one in Sweden. How can we preserve a film culture for films such as these that are not Manhattan projects? Jörgen, do you think can streaming services in themselves, because a lot of trust has been put in the streaming services in Sweden and in other countries, is that a hope for the future, or how do we preserve this kind of art house films?
Well, you tell me. It's not an easy question to answer. I mean, who can tell where the streaming services are going? I mean, for me, the films. I mean, I had some hopes for it in the beginning. Like the streaming platforms connecting audiences more than anything around the world, making rooms for independent films, art house films, etc. But I think the tendency is that they're all starting to look the same. The films, that is. I mean, it's difficult to say where we're going, but you can hardly place all the hope to the streaming services. There has to be other forms of initiatives. I think, like for instance, in Sweden, I think the National Film Institute has a responsibility for making, for preserving the diversity of cinema, for instance. So, I mean, it's hard to place the responsibility at some specific part, I would say.
So naturally,
with the streaming services, it's possible that we will see a development where there will be more like niche orientated, global streaming services. I think the streaming services we see today are, they're very much about the catalog, but I kind of miss the depth in the catalogs of these, companies.
Cristi, do you as a filmmaker have anything to add to this?
Well, I believe if that if they the powers that be, to say so, if they want to preserve cinema as it is, they will find very easy the money and the programs, the projects for doing so. I believe that all these things that we are living through are being determined by decisions that are not being taken by people we know. Like, in order for you to be able to call the guy and say, listen, pay attention to this, don't do this because you are going to affect my business or the perspective on things and so on. So I believe that yes, cinema is going to change, but I believe that it will stay like the vinyl for the music, you know, music recording, you know, and I tend to believe that you will have at the end some kind of 4 or 5 or 6 cinema theaters, like it happens for the theater today and for during years now, decades. And most of the consumers will spend their time at home. Like, you know, you have Netflix, you have HBO, or all these chains, these very powerful chains of films, film distribution at home. And you have the CDs of music. You have now Spotify. You are not going to concerts. No, so the concerts will stay something very, will become something very, 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 you know, I don't want to use the word elite, but somehow it will turn into something for the elite. Somehow, for elite from a certain perspective, from those who really want to get in touch with what music is. When music, it becomes music in front of your eyes there with live musicians and so on, like it happens in theater or in opera. And I believe cinema will have a place for cinema like this, but they have to put something very strong on the table. I don't know, maybe a 7D holographic cinema in order to not to be able to have this at home. And for all the others, the traditional cinema, like I'm having my collection of CDs here, if I want to listen to, I don't know, Led Zeppelin, I put the CD and I'm listening to Led Zeppelin. They are not here anymore as a group, so I cannot go and see them on stage. And I believe cinema is going to find its position amongst theater, opera, and concert halls as well. But again, it is not about cinema, it is not about art, it is about ourselves. I believe the most important thing is what is happening when you exit the cinema and what you are going to tell the other human in front of you about what you saw, what you experienced. It is this exchange that is from far much more important than anything else.
We need to start summing up here. So speaking of the future, what's in your immediate future? What are you planning now, if you can talk about it? Are you planning a new film?
Yeah, I'm trying to put together the elements for a new film, and it is not easy. It is not easy at all. It is having a lot to do with this passage, very painful passage of 2020. That's why I become more and more misanthrope. So, but I would like to make a film, and I would like to restore something like a fairy tale, which is not a fairy tale, but being placed somewhere in time, like long ago, like 100 years ago. I would would approach it as I approach a fairy tale is like, you know, Hitchcock used to say, you have to shoot a love scene like a crime scene and a crime scene like a love scene. So I'm trying to do mutatis mutandi, the same thing, and trying to imagine and reinvent a moment in time from where people were close to the ground and the nature. This I would like to do. This I would very much like to do. But I don't know if we're gonna get the money for it.
I hope you do. I think we have come to the discussion's end. Thank you very much, Cristi Puiu and Jörgen Andersson. It's been a pleasure to listen, and I hope that all the viewers will have equal pleasure from your film, Malmkrog.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.